13 days that shook the world. The Cuban Missile Crisis. October 1962. The world held its breath. The United States and the Soviet Union stood on the brink of nuclear war. This was the Cuban Missile Crisis, a confrontation sparked by the Soviet placement of nuclear missiles in Cuba. Fear gripped both nations as the possibility of a nuclear exchange became terrifyingly real. For 13 days, the fate of the world hung in the balance. The crisis unfolded against a backdrop of Cold War tensions. The US and USSR, locked in an ideological struggle, possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world many times over. Each superpower viewed the other with suspicion and distrust. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought these tensions to a head. The discovery of Soviet missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida, sent shockwaves through the U.S. government. President John F. Kennedy faced an agonizing decision: a full-scale invasion of Cuba or a naval blockade to prevent further Soviet shipments. Either option carried the risk of escalation, potentially leading to a catastrophic nuclear conflict. As the world watched with bated breath, Kennedy opted for the blockade, terming it a quarantine to avoid escalating the situation. Soviet ships carrying missiles steamed towards Cuba, setting the stage for a tense standoff in the Atlantic. The world held its breath, hoping for a peaceful resolution. Silent threat beneath the waves. Soviet submarine B-59. While the world focused on the surface confrontation, a hidden drama unfolded beneath the waves. A Soviet submarine, B-59, lurked in the waters near Cuba. Armed with a nuclear torpedo, it represented a silent and deadly threat. The submarine's mission was to maintain its position and await further instructions from Moscow. Unaware of the full extent of the crisis unfolding above, the crew of B-59 endured grueling conditions. The submarine was forced to submerge for extended periods, enduring intense heat and dwindling supplies. Communication with Moscow was sporadic, leaving the crew isolated and uncertain. On October 27, American destroyers located B-59 and began using practice depth charges to signal the submarine to surface. The Soviet crew, however, interpreted these signals as hostile acts. Trapped in the suffocating heat with communication lines down, they faced an impossible choice. The captain of B-59, Valentin Savitsky, believed war had broken out. He ordered the preparation of the nuclear torpedo, ready to launch it at the American ships. The fate of the world, seemingly, rested on the decision of one submarine commander. Brinkmanship and deception. Operation Northwoods. The Cuban Missile Crisis exposed the terrifying logic of Cold War brinkmanship. Both sides were willing to risk nuclear annihilation to achieve their objectives. This dangerous game of chicken was epitomized by a shocking plan devised by the U.S. military, Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods, proposed in 1962 but never executed, outlined a series of false flag operations designed to drum up public support for a war against Cuba. The plan included staged terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, the hijacking of civilian aircraft, and even the simulated sinking of a U.S. Navy ship. The goal was to blame these atrocities on the Cuban government, thereby justifying a U.S. invasion. The plan, thankfully, was rejected by President Kennedy, who recognized the moral and strategic disaster it represented. Operation Northwoods serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of deception and the ease with which public opinion can be manipulated. It underscores the importance of critical thinking and the need for transparency in government. A hero in the depths. Vasili Arkhipov stand. As tensions aboard B-59 reached a fever pitch, a voice of reason emerged. Vasili Arkhipov, a Soviet naval officer serving as flotilla chief of staff and second in command of B-59, refused to endorse the launch of the nuclear torpedo. His courageous act of defiance likely saved the world from nuclear catastrophe. Arkhipov argued that attacking the American ships without confirmation from Moscow would be an act of war with potentially unimaginable consequences. He engaged in a heated debate with Captain Savitsky, ultimately persuading him to surface the submarine. The decision to surface was not taken lightly. It meant exposing the submarine and its crew to potential attack. However, it also allowed for communication with Moscow, giving Soviet leaders time to consider their options and avert a nuclear exchange. Vasili Arkhipov's story remained largely untold for decades. Today he is recognized as a hero who, in the face of unimaginable pressure, chose peace over annihilation. His actions serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of individual courage and the need for level-headed leadership in times of crisis. Echoes of the Cold War parallels in a modern world. The Cuban Missile Crisis may seem like a relic of a bygone era, yet the lessons it offers remain chillingly relevant in today's world. Global tensions, the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and the rise of misinformation campaigns all echo the dangers of the Cold War. The standoff between Russia and the West over Ukraine, the escalating tensions in the South China Sea, and the ongoing nuclear threat posed by North Korea all highlight the fragility of peace in the 21st century. The stakes are higher than ever before. Just as in 1962, miscalculation, misinformation, or a failure of communication could have devastating consequences. The specter of nuclear war, once thought to be relegated to the history books, looms large once again. The world today faces a complex web of interconnected challenges. Addressing these challenges requires leadership, diplomacy, and a commitment to dialogue and understanding. The lessons of the Cuban Missile Crisis, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace, must guide our actions as we navigate the uncertain waters of the 21st century.